you.
Yes. Good morning. So for the ones who just joined, briefly, we will now watch a video of the making of a mosaic in the center of Leuven. And that was created by a young artist from Honduras who started as a young entrepreneur with a microcredit from an organization named Pilar. But this is the making of the mosaic in Leuven. Second attempt to show it to you. So, and then it restarts and we can watch this for forever.
Where is it in Leuven?
You sorry?
Where is it in Leuven?
In Leuven, actually just behind the town hall.
Oh, okay.
You have this the street is the Muntstraat. There's also the street of our head office, and it's just around the corner. So it's it's now nearly 4 years that we have created this one, and we were a little bit afraid that students would put graffiti or anything else on it, but until now nobody, let's say, changed the view of this mosaic. So it's still the original. They haven't painted it, so that's nice also that they respect this piece of art. All right. What do you think? Will we start? For the last full day, I hope it's that you are all in shape. Because today actually you will listen a little bit, but actually it's most of the time. I will put you here on the screen. It's most of the time I will not tell too much today. Most of it you will have to work together in groups. So for analyzing, and also I'm expecting your groups to present results. So that's the program for today. Now in the morning we will first finish the last group of indicators. Then we will have a small exercise on just to warm up for three MFIs, one from Africa, one Asian, and one from Latin America. So that's the warming up exercise, and then the real work starts, because you will have to analyze also the MFI that we will discuss in the afternoon. I just wanted to check. I've just sent to all of you by email the files for the three continents, including the one from Busa Gonova. Can you just double check if you have all received that one? If you put thumbs up, then I see that it's okay. Okay. So if try to open the Excel, you can do this a bit later, but be aware you have to make sure that your macro, he will request that the macro has to be activated. Otherwise, you will not have all the figures in the right, you cannot look to the figures in the right way. So except macros, there is no danger involved with that macro, all right? So we will go now to the last group of indicators. So we discussed portfolio quality, the efficiency was done, the financial management was done, and now we will talk about profitability and sustainability. But before I go to this exercise, there was a question about this one. There was a question about the calculation of the operating expense ratio that I received, and so therefore I would like you remember the operating expense ratio, so that's one of the three groups where you have to make use of the average gross loan portfolio. So it's operating expenses divided by the average gross loan portfolio. Now here we see a way of presenting this graph. As you can see, the operating expenses, they start in the beginning of the year, halfway the year in the month of June. 10,000 was spent on operating expenses, and this is the figure at the end of the year. Throughout the year, we will not make it difficult. The gross loan portfolio is steady and it's 100,000 all over the period. So can you quickly for me, we take the picture now in the month of June. So we are here in the time, and I would like you to calculate and to send it in the chat box, the operating expense ratio in June. Can you do that? I see the first two have sent in already. Just put the figure you have just calculated. Then I have a view about what you have. Can you type? Okay. So it's June that we are asking, huh? So halfway the year. Okay, I see two different figures. Let's do now. Okay. All right. Now calculate the one by the end of the year. Yeah. All right. Okay, I see some. Okay, here I see some strange figures also popping up. I see a lot of different figures actually. I see 15%, 30, 25%. I see 30%. Armande, 30%. Can you just give me the numerator and denominator that you have used for that one? It's typing and then I will explain. Okay, it's typing a lot. Huh? 10 plus 20. I see. Okay, that was good. Okay, correction indeed. So the answer is for both the same figure. It's when you do the operating expense in June, it's 20%, and the operating expense ratio in December is also 20%. It's throughout the year 20%. Whenever you take the picture, it's 20%. So how to explain? I see that most of you did have the answer right. I'm just looking here a little bit in the answers, like yeah. This is the exercise also on the annualization, and here you see why it's important to talk about annualization. So in the month of June, it's clear the organization has spent 10,000 euro or 10,000 whatever. 10,000, sorry. 10,000 divided by the average gross loan portfolio. And what's the average gross loan portfolio? We take, it's 10,000 when the period starts, when we are here at 0. And we take the picture at the moment that we want to calculate. It's 10,000 again. So it's 10,000 plus 10,000 divided by, 100,000, 100,000 divided by 2. It's 100,000. So the average, we have a very steady portfolio. So now many people actually here in the group thought, so it's 10,000 divided by the average of 100. So it's 10%. When you don't annualize, here you have to annualize because we are halfway the year. So we are acting as if you will have what if we have this growth, what will be the figure at the end of the year? We multiply by 2. So it's 20%. And it's also logical because otherwise you can see this is a steady way of working. They have every month they have a very steady way of working. And the operating expenses are growing in a straight way forward. And halfway the year we said to them, look, for managing a portfolio of 100, they spent 20. Yes? If you take the picture now at the end of the year, we also look to the period starting in the beginning of the year. So it's the denominator is 100,000 plus 100,000 when we take the picture, divided by 2. It's again the same. It's 100,000. You see, and what have we spent on operating expenses? 10,000, and now we arrived at in total 20,000. So it's 20%. If we don't do annualization, what would have been the conclusion? That halfway the year they are to manage 100, they spend 10, and if you take the picture at the end of the year, you will say, oh, now they are less efficient because now it's 20%. No, it's actually throughout the year they have the same efficiency, and if you don't do the annualization, you will have wrong conclusions. So every time when you have a P&L figure like this black line compared to a to a balance figure like this red line, you have to take of this red line the average, and on the black one you have to annualize. So if you take the picture, let's say halfway here when it's 5,000, let's say in the first quarter, It's 5,000 divided by 100 multiply 4. It's also 20%. Here it's always 20%. Is this understood?
Sorry, Professor, just the last one. Can you please repeat?
Yeah, okay. So if we have now, if we take the picture, like say by the end of March, here, we are in the end in March.
Okay.
Yes, in March, so it's the first quarter. We are looking how much have they spent on operating expenses until March, because this is a movie, as you know, this is a film continuously going on, 5,000. So you take on, it's 5,000 divide by the average gross loan portfolio. You take the beginning of the period, it's 100, plus the end of the period is also 100, divide by 2, so it remains 100. So because we haven't, it's quite, is a straight line this time. But you have to multiply by 4 because it's March, so you have to annualize your figure. So it's 20, I don't know what is, it's turning black all the time. So it's 20%. So whenever you take your picture, if it's a steady line, you will have the same operating expense ratio. This organization is having a steady way of managing a portfolio of 100,000. If you don't do that, annualization, you will say in March they are much more efficient for managing 100,000. They have to spend only 5. At the end of June, it's 10, and by the end of the year is 20. Then you will have, let's say, a fluctuation in efficiency, while the efficiency actually throughout the year is the same. Okay, and otherwise you cannot make any conclusions with these operating expenses. Now the situation is different. It's not always a steady line, you know. Sometimes you are overestimating in the beginning of the year or underestimating. Typically, for example, is the following. It might be like this, that your gross loan portfolio is not 100,000 throughout the year, but it can be like this, a line like this. Imagine now that you are calculating only the figures beginning and the end of the year. Let's say we go by the end of the year, we are now in December. And you are calculating, so this is, I will make this as a different organization. I will say, look, this is another MFI. They are just spending exactly the same operating expenses, exactly the same. But you have organization A with a very steady portfolio, and you have organization B, here the green one, having a trend like this in the gross loan portfolio. If we are comparing both organizations, what will happen? For the organization A, it's clear, it's 20%. Take the picture, 20,000, take the picture in the beginning, take a picture at the end, it's 20%. If you do exactly the same for organization B, what will be your conclusion? We look to B, okay? They have spent 20,000, exactly the same. We are looking to the period, beginning of the year, end of the year, divided by 2, and we will say for organization B, also 20%. So it looks as if both have the same efficiency, but in reality, if you only look to pictures in the beginning of the year and by the end of the year, you don't see this one. And actually you are overestimating B, because B actually, for the whole volume of 20,000 that they have spent on operating expenses, throughout the year they have actually managed a much smaller a much smaller gross loan portfolio. So therefore, if you know that an organization doesn't, if you for yourself actually knows that an organization is not that steady line, it's better to have more, to calculate the averages, to have more pictures of your gross loan portfolio. So imagine that we take the average, to calculate the average, not by taking just 2 points, but by taking 3 points. In the case of A, we take point here, 100 plus 100 plus 100 divided by 3. So that remains 100. That's clear. If we go and if we do the same for the organization B, it will be 20,000 in operating expenses. This doesn't change, but if we take now the average, it will be 100 plus, let's say, make it easy, 80, right? 80,000. So it's 100 plus 80 plus 100 divided by 3. It's 280 divided by 3. That's about 7. No, I will not calculate it exactly. Let's say it's about 75,000 on average. Can somebody give me the percentage if it's like this?
$27.
Yeah. About 26, 27, let's say 26 and a half. So you're both right. 26, it's not nice. I will just, because it's recorded, and I will write a bit, but it's about 26%.
Sorry, Professor.
Yeah.
You said that in June the portfolio was 80,000.
Yeah, let's say about 80. A
Then
little
the
bit lower.
average is not 90.
What is that? That's 280,000 divided by 3. That's how much?
280. I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually 90. I took. It's like, but let's imagine that it's a little bit lower and that it's 75,000 multiplied 3. I've just taken this figure, it's 225. Yeah, actually, imagine that the line is much lower. Otherwise, this figure is not correct. You understand what I want to say? It's lower, so the average here you have. It's 7. The average is in this is not 100,000 but 75,000. Okay. In that case, it's and the same if this organization would have done like this. If it was an organization having a portfolio like this, if you just take the two end figures, you are underestimating because they actually have the 20% by just taking 2 points is actually underestimating the efficiency because they manage a much larger portfolio. So therefore, the more averages you can take throughout the year, if you have monthly figures, that's the best actually. You can take 12 months divided by 13, and then you have the exact way of looking to the figures. So annualization gives you a much better indication. Otherwise, you cannot compare periods with each other. Is this okay? You can put thumbs up, then I'm for sure that. All right. I see one thumb, and I think this counts for everybody. Thank you very much. All right. So that's annualization. You need it for the 4 groups of indicator, for the operating expense, for for the funding expense ratio, for the provision expense ratio, and we will now also see that you have to use this for the portfolio yield that we will discuss now with the profitability and sustainability. Let's have a look to my I will just put it back. So I have to put it in presenter's view, otherwise I cannot see display settings. Hold on, I will just swap this. Okay. Yes, you have the full screen again. All right. So on profitability. Profitability, it's not because microfinance is not talking about profit maximizing, but they do need, of course, profit to continue the activities, to make it possible to invest and so on. I was just looking for. So there was a technical problem here in my computer. It's blinking and I cannot read it properly. Now it's better. All right. We have seen that we never talked about what do you include in all the figures? What do you include in all the figures? And actually we make one adjustment. And there is only one adjustment that we always do, that we never include donations, but only donations that we can detect in the profit and loss statement. It might be possible that they also have donated equity. For that one, we don't make an adjustment, but donations through the profit and loss statement, they are never included in any indicator. Otherwise, it's very hard to measure the profitability of an organization. There are 4 indicators, and the 2 first ones are really well known in the whole financial world. The portfolio yield too, but you will see that in the banking world, operational self-sufficiency today is an indicator that is not used. It's one that is really specific for the microfinance sector. And we will come back to that later, but even the microfinance sector is now asking or pleading to say, no, we don't need operational self-sufficiency anymore, but I don't agree with that one. I think it's a very important indicator to keep in mind. Especially, it's not because of the top MFIs are actually thinking that this is not interesting anymore that we have to skip this indicator. But let's go to the 2 indicators, return on equity, return on assets. The first one, sorry, is how much can I, and there are 2 options. You have return on equity. How much can I actually give to my shareholders? How much do my shareholders earn? It doesn't mean that I have to pay all the return on my equity to my shareholders, but at least this is the potential for my shareholders. But as we will see, for many organizations, they don't work with, they don't pay out dividends to shareholders, but they do capitalize this every year. Actually, in reality, it's a combination, of course. If you have shareholders, part of your return might go to the shareholders, part is going to the capitalization of your organization. This afternoon with organization Busa Gonova, you will see that this organization has never paid out dividends. They always, whenever they have a profit, it's always capitalized in the organization. It might be one of the questions where this that will be discussed in the afternoon about this model, because I know that Mr. Tishome, he has a very specific view on that, of an organization not paying out dividends but capitalizing the money every year. Okay. So here we take the net income after taxes and before donations, and again, averaged equity. Profit and loss statement divided by a balance figure average, plus annualization if you take this picture somewhere in throughout the year. I talked about other adjustments you can make. We have, I said, by taking off the donations, it's already an adjustment that is done. But organizations can go much further. For yourself, if you have, for example, and this is what rating agencies do. Rating agencies are making adjustments, but for making adjustments, you have to take into account comparable data. For example, if you have in-kind staff, one organization is saying to you, look, the bookkeeping services are done by a third party, or it's subsidized, somebody is volunteering or is from an external organization appointed to support your organization. You can say, look, I will calculate this indicator, and I will do as if I have to pay everything. Imagine that I have to pay that person, I add an extra cost to it. So then I have an adjusted return on equity ratio. And this is what rating agencies do. When you have, and it's mainly, for example, when you have access to subsidized loans, they will put an extra cost on it. They say, look, what if you have to pay the commercial rate? And in order to do that, of course, you must have some references to calculate this rate. So organizations, when you talk about adjustments, is making the, let's say, to level the playing field. This is something that rating agencies do, but it's also something that you as manager can do for yourself. If you know, for example, that person in the bookkeeping that you don't have to pay, that you don't have to pay that person for eternity, that there is always somebody paying for you, it's no need to do that exercise. But if you know one day this is just temporarily, don't fool yourself and make this adjustment yourself to make sure that if my business model, is it able to pay for that extra cost or not? So adjustments are something that you as a manager can do for yourself. So here we say, like, for-profit organizations, they pay a lot to that. If you are later on an investor, we will have the exercise that you will have to look to Busa Gonova as an investor. It's a very profitable organization, and many investors, when you are investing in capital of the organization, you are of course interested if dividends will be paid. Otherwise, it can be also used to reinforce the equity through the retained earnings and to raise further equity. Okay. We will see comparing organizations based on the return on equity. It's a quite difficult one because all the organizations have different look differently. You have organizations highly capitalized, organizations with a low capital, and it makes it quite difficult to compare organizations. It's better to use this one because, sorry, I have to want to add, for the non-profit, it's only a reinforcing of equity. But if we look to another indicator that makes it more comparable, because the assets for all the organizations is the full assets. If you use this as the denominator, it gives you an indicator of what is my assets capacity of generating profit to grow. So you take the same nominator, being the net income after taxes and before donations, but this time divided by the average assets and the and the information, let's say the node is the same, you can adjust this one as much as you know, as much as the information is available for you. Okay. This is a much more interesting indicator to compare different organizations with each other about the return on assets. So it measures the capacity to generate revenues with the own assets. It's an overall measure of profitability that reflects both the profit margin and the efficiency of the organization. And like we said already, it's much more easy to compare similar different organizations, the for-profit and the not-for-profit, independently of their financing structure. So if they have high or low equity level, it doesn't make a difference. With the return on assets, you take all the assets instead of the equity. So that's the moment that I will request to put on your cameras again and to take your colors. And the first question. Okay, but yeah, can you put the, I will show it to you, then you see yourself if the colors are visible. Yeah, I see green, green, green all over the place. So thank you very much. And indeed, the morning starts well. Thanks for that one. So it's indeed, it includes not only the portfolio, but all the other incomes from the investments and other operating activities. It's all included except donations. That's the only one that is not included. Second question. The return on assets. It disadvantages MFIs that are mainly financed by own equity. If you have a high equity rate, when you look to the return on assets, they look less profitable compared to others with low equity when calculating the return on assets. The morning really starts well. Look, it's all red. Perfect. That's what we say. It makes a difference when calculating the return on equity, but no difference when looking to the return on assets. You can compare both entities in a more similar way. There is normally a positive correlation between this ratio and the portfolio to assets ratio. The word normally is, of course, important here. And here you see yourself. It's clearly all green. I see a few people still doubting, but if they know that all the others have put on green, I suppose they will also switch to the same. Abdullah is trying to join again. Hello, Abdullah.
Hello, Professor.
Hello.
Sorry, I have a lot of...
No problem, no problem. You are from you are sitting in Yemen.
Yes.
Is that you? Okay.
Yeah. So I missed the last question. The last time I saw only 2 questions and then I left.
Yeah, I know. No, that's far. Just for, are there other people also sitting in other countries now? Or are you the only one who is not in Brussels?
Apparently.
Yeah, apparently nobody else. That's indeed far away. So the last question here, Abdullah, was there is normally a positive correlation between this ratio and the portfolio to assets. And indeed, everybody put green, and that's true. Taking into account, of course, the fact that the portfolio is the main or the only asset that is generating income. There might be, of course, organizations having a small portfolio to assets. I don't consider them as real microfinance institutions, but I know in Cameroon we work with an organization, and part of the assets was actually a building, so real estate. They invested in real estate and they were renting the building. It was a huge part of the assets class, and it was also generating income. So it doesn't mean, but here we talk about normally, and organizations with only portfolio as a source of income and all the rest is not generating income, the higher in that case the portfolio to assets, the more the income. So, but it was all correct from your side. Now we come to a third group of indicators. The third indicator on the profitability side, we already discussed it. It's the portfolio yield. Portfolio yield. We do take all the financial revenue received. But important, from your loan portfolio. So all related costs received from your, let's have a look. Yeah, from your loan portfolio. Here we include, it's very important, not only the interest, but also the fees. Sometimes microfinance institutions charge a lot of extra fees. Just to be a client, to open an account, to discuss the file. Some organizations add also other costs, especially when you come in countries where there is an interest cap. This is one of the ways to have a higher portfolio yield compared to the interest rate. And in that case, many organizations add these fees in order to have this higher portfolio yield. Between brackets, we have put cash, and I have to say I will go to one of the to the fact sheets to give you a view on that one, where to find it when you have to analyze this later on. Give me a minute to go to that file. It's this here, presentations, yeah. I will take the one from Busa that we will discuss in the afternoon. Yeah, it's showing up now. So in the P&L, I will make it a bit larger. Here we are. So as you can see, the interest and the fee income from the loan portfolio, this is used for your for the calculation of the portfolio yield. And normally, the most conservative way is that you only take this line, the cash, interests, and the fee income. So this is what is normally the theory to be used. And from the interest and fee income from loan portfolio. Now, many organizations are also adding, and I have to say in our fact sheet, we also include the accruals. It's the interest receivable. But in that case, you have to be very careful when including. So we are also very careful with that one. So accruals is like if you're not familiar with it, if I have, for example, a bullet repayment for agricultural loan, this is the most obvious one. I know I give a loan, and within 6 months they will pay interest plus capital. So during I take it's a very simple example, but during 6 months I will not receive any interest, and it's only after 6 months that interest and capital will be repaid. In that case, organizations make use of these accruals, and they will, after the first month, they put in already, okay, this is already interest due. It's receivable, but not paid yet. So it's, and after 5 months already in the accruals, you have a high amount. 5 of the 6 months of accruals are already registered as if you will have already received it, but it's not in your cash yet. And so it's a non-cash item in this case. And after 6 months, when that person pays back the 6 months, it goes into your cash and fee income. So otherwise you have too many fluctuations. So for organizations, it's a good practice to make use of accruals, but this is only working well if your portfolio quality is good. If you are registering accruals throughout the year, but the portfolio quality is bad, and when the real date of repayment has arrived and organizations have to pay, and accruals are not coming in, then you are overestimating your total financial income. So therefore, in the theory, we say the most conservative way is only cash. But we put it into practice and between brackets, because if the portfolio quality is well managed, you can also include your accruals as we do in a standardized way in our fact sheet. Okay.
Professor, may I ask a question?
Of course, of course.
These accruals, so this would mean that in every month, proportionately, they would record 1 month share of the half year loans interest.
Yes.
Okay.
Although it's not received yet, but it's due to the organization, and then this is how accruals indeed works. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So here in the portfolio yield, we don't hide anything. We put all kinds of income, the interest, the fees, commissions, but also, for example, when organizations are charging penalty fees. So they are also included in that portfolio yield. We will have a small exercise on the second line here. When you compare this, and in our investment organization, we do regularly, is comparing this ratio to the real interest, because that will provide you a better idea on the recovery capacity. What is happening sometimes that organizations are, we saw it in some, that they are talking when the recovery is not going well, they reschedule. We talked about a portfolio at risk. In order to improve that one, you can reschedule, but you don't register this as a rescheduled one. You just consider this as a new loan, and this is sometimes how people hide the real situation. But what is happening in that case, the portfolio at risk, you don't see the difference. It looks like a perfect portfolio at risk, but when comparing the real interest rate charge, and you see and you compare this to the portfolio yield, and the portfolio yield is much lower than the real interest rate, and at the same time you see that the portfolio at risk is a very good quality, you know something is wrong in this organization. They are actually not earning the expected amount. And therefore the portfolio yield is a very interesting indicator. But if you haven't understood this now very well, we have a small exercise after this, and then it will be much clearer. And it's like for this sentence here at the end, it is important for all indicators. Don't calculate indicators only at the end of the year, once a year. It's like for all indicators, try to follow them. The best is, of course, doing this on a monthly base, but at least on a quarterly base. For all our partners, we do request at least on a semestral base twice a year. But for managers, monthly figures are the most common way, and it gives you already very quickly an indication, and when something might go wrong. Yeah, that's for all the indicators. Try to follow up on a very regularly base. Okay. Yeah, this is saying exactly the same. The indicator doesn't hide. Here it's quite difficult to hide what is happening in the organization, like unrealistic accounting procedures. I was referring to that you just change your, like, I'm a little bit looking for the best way to explain. I referred to the fact, for example, that organizations are hiding the real income, that they have these accounting procedures by, even if the loan is not received yet, that they already putting it, and they know that the quality is very bad, that they at the same time just act as if they have a lot of accruals just to hide that it looks like a very profitable organization, but looking to the portfolio yield and comparing it to the real indicator, you will see that that you cannot hide yourself anymore. This is a big difficult question in the sector still. We are writing this already for years, that is a downward trend in the industry. When more mature, yes, but it's mainly because of competition that we do see that the portfolio yield is going down, but it's not at a very high level. I have to say that it's still a huge discussion in the sector about portfolio yield. It's still a very high percentage compared to the normal banking sector. And I know everybody's saying, yes, but the costs involved are also very high, but that cannot be an excuse for charging too high interest rates. You have to find a business model to make interest rates for your clients affordable. And I have to admit, it's not always the case. Sometimes organizations are still too expensive. And because of the short run of the short time of loans, the short-term loans, it's perhaps not always felt like a high interest rate at a high cost, but for poor people, indeed, life it's more expensive, and it's not only for interests on microcredit, on microloans, but we do see it also for other commodities. Right? People with more money, they can buy higher quantities on food, for example. They buy a bag of 25 kilo of rice, while some people who are in the more poor people, they buy it by 250 grams each time. And if they look to the amount that they pay, is also much higher than buying it in huge quantities. And it's a bit similar in the sector of microfinance. Yeah, I talked already about the cap rates. Sometimes interest rates are capped, and then organizations add all the other fees, and this is when this is not controlled, it looks like a low interest rate, but it's still a high portfolio yield. Why do institutions usually tend to hide the real interest rate charts? This is a question that we will discuss in the next exercise. In order not to discourage customers to borrow and to respect regulatory standards, sometimes set an interest rate limit. Yeah, it's always the same, like if there is a cap or an interest rate limit, that's the same. It gives the opportunity for organizations to say, look, this is the interest rate, but they put all these extras. And I think there was a huge discussion also in the sector of being transparent. And for me, it's one of the most important parts of the whole social on the whole discussion on social microfinance. This is being very transparent to your clients. I say especially on the interest rates. You know, here in Europe, it's an obligation. You have to, the APR, you have to show the real percentage ratio, all costs included. And this is unfortunately not the case in all the other countries in the South yet. So therefore, some microfinance institutions who don't have a real social performance view or a social performance and social mission, they can make use of this to the fact that this is not an obligation that they can hide for their clients. Sometimes all of these extras, and that they just show the interest rate, but they don't include, for example, is it done on a flat interest rates, or is it on a declining base? All these differences, all these practices, accounting practices, makes it less visible for clients, less understandable what the real price is they have to pay. Yeah. This is for the exercise I would like to refer to. So here you can show again what is happening here. If we go to everything that I said, it's shown by this graph here. We see organization A. This is the global effective interest rate, 45%. I would say this is somewhere in Uganda. It's about the average portfolio yield effectively in Uganda. And the contractual is exactly the same. What does it say to the organization? What does it mean if the global effective is the same as the contractual one?
Transparency?
Yes, absolutely. And so this is clear. If you compare this to MFIB, it's not the case. And this is what they charge and this is what they say. So on that point, but then it's also possible that the portfolio yield is lower than the global effective interest rate. How to explain?
Professor?
Yes?
It means that the financial revenue received are lesser in comparison in comparison to the average loans in the portfolio. I don't know if it's clear, but it's something to do with the financial revenue received.
Yeah, the financial revenue received is lower than the global interest rate, effective interest rate. And actually, this is quite normal because you have always a portfolio at risk. There is also a number of clients that don't pay back as requested. So what you charge is not always what you get. So that's for clear, but sometimes it's the opposite. Not many times, but it might be a period that what you charge, what you get is more than what you charge. How do you explain that one?
Is it the fact that there were arrears, so portfolio where clients didn't pay on time, and then the payment arrived later on that period of calculation?
Say again, sorry.
So for the portfolios with arrears in payment, so it's maybe that in the moment of the calculation of the portfolio yield, all those clients who were late have also paid their loans in that period. So it makes the portfolio yield to be higher.
Yeah, actually, if they haven't paid, then is what you received in the meantime normally will not exceed what you expected to receive. But there is a link. It has to do with accounting. I agree with you, but it might be, for example, that in the past you have written off loans that you haven't received, and normally when loans are written off, you don't expect them to come in anymore. It's possible that when later on you don't forget about written off loans, that when they come in later.
Yes.
It's normally organizations from an accounting point of view, it's normally considered as an extraordinary income and it's not considered as portfolio yield, but some organizations do. And they add it to the fee and the interest income, and in that case it can be higher. But it has also to do when working only on a cash base. When you work on a cash-based way, it might be possible that there are periods that you are receiving loans from a few months ago that you haven't calculated, that are suddenly coming in a certain period. And then it might look as if you have very high interest rates compared to your gross loan portfolio. So, but it's more to do with accounting. This is not something that you often see. It's the most ideal organization is MFIA, saying this is what we charge, and they are very transparent about it, and it's quite logical that you don't fully get what you expected to get. Yeah, but I see a few questions here in the group. Let's have a look. To Sylvia.
Yes, I would have two short questions. The first is this contractual interest rate. Does it include the fees, like the one-off fees in the beginning?
Yeah, here we include the fees indeed. It's not penalties are not included, of course, here because this is not in the interest rate, but normally the effective interest rate, the global, includes all costs involved. Yeah.
Okay. And the other one is you say that from the write-offs, unexpected repayments, you take it as an extraordinary income. But what about real defaults and there is a potential recovery? Is that an income as well?
Sorry, the last one I haven't understood well. What about the real defaults?
Like there is a real default and let's say there was a collateral that they recovered. Is the income from the collateral an extraordinary income? Does it appear here?
That's a good, it's not in the interest, certainly not, but I have to
mean
admit
the portfolio yield.
Yeah, it's not included in portfolio yields. Actually, also the recovery from the written off loans is also normally not included in the portfolio yield. It's the extraordinary income, doesn't take part of that. But I have to admit, when it comes to the collateral, I don't know exactly how from the accounting point of view, if this is considered as an extraordinary income or another class. I don't know, but it's certainly not part of the portfolio yield. Yeah. Maria.
So if we regard the red bar, so we can calculate also the portfolio at risk.
Sorry, what do you say about the red bar?
I mean, we see that there is a difference of,
yeah,
10%. So this is the portfolio at risk.
Yeah, so this is making that not all clients. So if the blue and the red were exactly the same, this means that all clients are repaying at 100%, no arrears, and everybody is exactly on time, no other costs involved. But because of there is always some arrears, the portfolio yield is lower compared to the portfolio to the global effective interest rate.
So the difference is part 30, part blah blah blah.
Yeah, it can whatever. Yeah, but you will see, and
Okay,
that's interesting. Therefore, to know if an organization, for example, is having always a good quality of portfolio. It's always a good. That's the interesting part, and you see the portfolio yield going down, and the quality as well. Your conclusion can be this organization is charging lower interest rates. Because the quality is always good and the portfolio is going down. This might be one of the hypotheses. They have a good portfolio. They have lowered the interest rates.
But it's not transparency.
Actually, you don't know. There are two options. If you see portfolio quality is always good, and at the same time, the portfolio yield goes down. There are two options. The positive one is this organization, the portfolio quality is really good. And so if the yield goes down, there is only one explanation. They are charging lower interest rates. But it can be also something different. When you see quality is always good, and yield is going down, it can be also that they are rescheduling without putting this in the figures, and that they are acting as if the quality is good, while in reality they are not getting the money. So that's the other way around. And the only, when looking to the figures of the fact sheet, you cannot know the answer in advance. You don't know the real. Therefore, that's what we said. It's good for the organization. This is what we also do when we are looking to the figures from an investor's point of view. We also ask the details about the products. What is actually the global effective interest rates of your products? What is the expected yield? And if we see that there is a huge gap between the global effective interest rate and the portfolio yield, while the quality is good, we know that there is something wrong in the organization. Yeah, so therefore you need that extra information, but this is not included in the fact sheet. You don't have a detail about the products of the organization.
Okay, thank you.
But this is the way you can look to it and start the discussions. I see also Fernando having a question.
Yes, Professor, I was thinking about maybe the economic explanation for this portfolio yield, lower when you are more transparent, because maybe when you are more transparent, people can see your real fees and real cost of their loans, and this will lower somehow the demand of loans, and that's why you get a lower average loan size, and maybe you have also a lower yield.
Yeah, but here I think that is it's correct what you say when you unveil all the information of your organization. This is what we said here. Huh? Why do institutions usually tend to hide the real interest rate charged? Huh? And this is what you are saying. Then you are discouraging them to borrow. Huh? Am I correct? So this is what you are saying, but it has to do with financial literacy also, that when people don't know, you can say, okay, then they, so I will first answer to your question. If customers don't take your product when they don't borrow, it doesn't make a difference normally for your portfolio yield. A portfolio yield is only based on real loans that are given out. What you will see is the growth ratio of your organization will change. You will have perhaps less customers, but it doesn't have normally an effect on your portfolio yield itself, because this is only on the outstanding balance that is out with your clients. So it doesn't make a difference. But it's true, even some organizations we talked about and say, why don't you unveil the real interest rate to the clients? And this is, I think these regulators, I understand also sometimes their position. They say, look, if we are the only one showing everything and others are not doing it in the same way, we are not playing in the same on the same playground. The rules must be the same for everybody. And therefore, this is what I think is good in the regulation here in Europe, and today also in many other countries. It's not only Europe, of course, but that regulator is actually forcing everybody to unveil to show this information for everybody, and then you can have that kind of that kind of competition that can play. But we feel that is important for clients, and I will give you an extreme example. There was, I have here, I have the graph here. Here. It's still a very interesting exercise, and you can download it for free. There was many years ago a company, MF Transparency. And I can tell you on the fact sheet on the website microfact.org, we are using the same formula. But this was what he was doing at that time. That was a certain Mr. Chuck. I'm looking to his family name, Chuck. I will find it. Chuck Waterfield. He was a guy, and he had, with his company Microfinance Transparency, they went to all countries looking to real contracts. What you see here is every single dot is a contract that you could find on the Transparency website with the real interest rate here, annual percentage rate, all fees included, including not only the fees, but also, this is what we don't do, also including the, this is a nice service. They are asking if I want to have another coffee. So he was also including if a charge when there is compulsory savings. In this one, we never talked about compulsory savings, but also there's also a cost related to it. If you borrow 100, but you have to save 25 first, and that's compulsory, sometimes without any interest for that one, it's also considered as a cost for the client. So he included this one, and you can see the tranches of all the effects of every single fee that was related to that one. And here you can see what happened in Rwanda for the very low, in the very low end of loan sizes. The real interest rate was going up from somewhere between 20 up to more than 100% for clients. The same product, the same loan size. That was the variation in the country. The size of the bullet shows how many clients took the product. So you can see that these are the 1, 2, 3. These 4 bullets are the most. This is actually by more than between 12 and 15,000 people who had this specific loan product. So it was around 50%. But apart from the outliners, if you can see it, quite a number of people had the same loan at a much cheaper, but also at a much higher price. And you can see there are less loans in the sector of microfinance above 10,000, but there is always that trend line. In general, the higher the amount, the lower the interest rate, but this transparency spread is incredible. And we see in countries, you can still go to that website, although the company doesn't exist anymore, but the figures are still available for this study, that when there was this regulation of transparency imposed, that the spread was suddenly much lower, that the products were much more comparable, that clients were much more aware of it. And it's very strange at the African Microfinance Week that was every year organized, of course, in Africa. I know that this discussion was put on the agenda. Why not to have all over Africa this kind of regulation? And it remains strange for me that the banking sector, the regulator sector, didn't want to go into that kind of regulation, to have the APR as just deciding that the APR has to be put on every single document, because that will help certainly. Yeah, of course, these are good, but imagine this client, I'm sure that he's not aware that his loan is more than 100% interest rate if all the others are paying half. So it's still an important question, point of attention. So transparency for us, it's the main one of the main indicators and dimensions of social performance for a microfinance institution. So here we have a little bit a similar exercise before we go to our nearly at the break, but let's look to portfolio yield. Is a bit the similar exercise as we discussed in the beginning of this session. We have two organizations, the red one and the green one. They have the same portfolio yield. Both have a portfolio yield of 25%. The quality of the portfolio is also the same. The only thing is that they calculate the portfolio yield based on the average gross loan portfolio by 2 dots in the beginning and the end of the period. This is how the gross loan portfolio is evaluating throughout the year. It looks like this. So question is, if you are a client of A and a client of B, who is paying most for their loan? You can show the color, red or green. I'm looking to their colors, yeah. Indeed, the colors that I see are all green. So it's clear. It's green. Here you pay in reality most. Because this is what they earn on a much smaller portfolio. This is what they earn on a much larger portfolio. All right. If they would take pictures in halfway the year and the average would be much higher, so the denominator would be much higher, the portfolio yield would be lower. Perfect. Here you have some figures of the sector. Yeah, the average is still around 20%. It tends to go a little bit down. Asia apparently smaller, but it's still, you know, between 15-20% is considered as a normal portfolio yield. But you know, Mexico, Uganda, there are many countries with much higher portfolio yields. So this is just the benchmark, but the spread between the countries and within the countries and between the MFIs, as you have seen in Rwanda, there is a huge variation. So summarizing, portfolio yield, with this one, you cover your provision expense, your funding expenses, and your operating. And when you are able to do so, you have a positive yield margin. If your portfolio yield is not able to cover at least these three groups of expenses, you have a negative yield margin. If we go and have a look to our two microfinance institutions, you can see that this young organization, this is the way you calculate your, you look to your figures of the fact sheet. They are showing this information in exactly the same way. So you have the three groups of costs, the blue part, and so this here being the operating expenses. You remember, very high when they started, funding expense plus provision expense. If you put next to this the portfolio yield, but we have included it in the same figure, here you have a negative yield margin. So this organization in the first year, for every loan of 100, they were losing 20. And they were spending 44 on operating, 4 on funding, 3 on provisions, but they didn't earn enough to cover all the expenses. Doesn't mean that they weren't profitable the first year. It's possible that they were profitable because of donations, and that the donations compensated for the losses, but therefore it was not included. So it doesn't mean that they were not profitable the year, but not by the portfolio only. It's already on the second year that they had a slight positive, and now after 3 years they have this margin of 12%, which is quite high. 12% is indeed an interesting interest margin. If you look to our big car, the more established one, throughout the year, the same operating expenses, and always a little bit, they had one good year in 2014, but this was mainly because of the lower provision expenses. But you remember that organization is having access only to commercial lending. They were not mobilizing any savings. You remember that the funding expenses went up, so the margin was too low. And one of you already said MFI was looking to bring down this funding expense part by starting services for mobilizing savings. But be aware, mobilizing savings, it's not like, okay, there's a cheap source of funding, let's go to that one. Microfinance institutions are not just allowed to click and you can do that kind of funding. For doing that, your financial management must be very performant, because the liquidity management is much more important. But what is even more important is not all this back office, but is the mentality of your organization. We are now working with an organization in Uganda for years now that we try to guide them in starting from credit only to saving and credit. And the technical part is, I would say, it's not the most difficult one, but it's really the mentality of the organization. If you are a credit only, all your clients owe money to you. You must go out to clients or they come to you and they try to convince you that you have to give them money. And you are always in the position, and if they don't pay back, you go after them. If you say, okay, I would like to go to savings, it's a complete different mentality. Now you have to go to people and to convince people that they can trust you to put money in your organization. And they can come after you if you are not able to repay them on time and to give them the service when they want to have their money back. And that part sometimes is forgotten. And mobilizing savings, some organizations think, very interesting, cheap source of funding. But the change in your organization from credit only to savings and credits is a complete different mindset. And sometimes this is sometimes forgotten by organizations doing this. Cooperatives, they just start with this right from the beginning. They are very familiar with this kind of work, by this kind of business model, because they, in most most cooperatives, it's the main source of funding. It's the savings, and it's also the main service sometimes also for clients. It's not considered as not only considered as a source for funding, but it's also mainly considered as a service to their members. And yeah, it's a complete different mindset in organizations. So I just want to add it to this part. But I'm looking to the time, and I propose that we have a break. And can I ask you to have this a little bit shorter, because otherwise I think that the exercises that we have to do together, that we are running out of time. So is it okay that we see each other back at 10:45? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, see you. Hello. Hello. Welcome back. So we are going to finish with our last indicator, but I just want, before we do this, I will go show you one specific feature of our fact sheet. We were talking about this effective interest rate, and it's true, our fact sheet, we are not able to know exactly the product. So we are trying to make an approximate calculation of the effective interest rate. And the way we do is like if we see the portfolio yield, and this is the only indicator we have created ourselves. So all the indicators in the fact sheet are indicators that are published, except this one. And what's this one? We say, look, the portfolio yield, we know it's underestimating the real effective interest rate because it's normally higher. So we make ourselves two adjustments automatically. And this is taking the portfolio yield. We make an adjustment for the write-offs. We know if there are write-offs, the yield in the interest rate is actually higher. And we make an adjustment for the portfolio at risk. And then it looks like as follows. For MFI X, it's not a real big change, as you can see, because quality was quite good. But here you see we have about 39% portfolio yield in 2011. And by these two adjustments, taking the portfolio par 30 multiplied by portfolio yield and write-offs multiplied by portfolio yield, we can make a small adjustment. And the way we show it in the fact sheet is like, this is what you see. This is the adjusted rate. Effective interest rate is just a proxy. The extra information on this slide is one of the graphs of the social indicators that you can see that our MFI is a quite small organization within others in Morocco. The blue ones is competition that you can find on before on the mix and now on the Atlas side. So, but this is done automatically, so you can update this and you can see the figures of the competition. So you know this is a small organization providing on average tiny loans compared to the big ones in the country, but at a higher cost compared to the large organizations in the country. So the more data the Atlas will publish in the near future, the more bullets we can show here on the on this graph, and the better you can have an idea already about the situation of your MFI that you are evaluating. So here you can see this is the effect this small organization is having. It was actually in Peru, it was not in Morocco. So in Peru, at the stage when I took this picture, there are many other tiny MFIs and a very large one in the country, and the tiny ones are all around 40–50%. So we know that, at least we know that MFI X is certainly not out of range. If we see to our big car, the MFIY, slightly higher loan size, but still small loan size is less than 20% of the GNI per capita in the country. But also, if you see both, also at a lower average interest rate. So this is some extra information that you can see on the fact sheet as the last indicator. So to summarize everything, this is the last indicator, the operational self-sufficiency. Here, it's one indicator taking into account all the others. So here we include all the operating revenue, and be aware it's more than the portfolio yield. So it's not only the interest, so only the income from your portfolio, from your gross loan portfolio, but also other operating revenue. If your organization is, for example, providing training for other organizations, here we include also this in the operating revenue. So it's more than only the income from portfolio. It's also the income, for example, from your investments. When you have part of your liquidity invested in the bank, so income from your financial investments is also included. When we have that organization from Cameroon having real estate and renting out buildings, this is also part of their operating revenue. So it's possible to have a negative yield margin like we have in the previous one, but at the same time, a positive operational self-sufficiency. This is possible because of these extra revenues that are not related to your portfolio income, but still we never include donations. Donations are always excluded. Is that okay? So when we go to the questions and your colors, by focusing on coverage costs, the OSS reflects the ability of the MFI to continue its operations without future subsidies. Yeah, I see the greens popping up by most of you. So yeah, the shirts and the trousers and other subjects that I cannot identify are now in the screen. So indeed, that's true. The minimum threshold is 80%. Now I see, yeah, it's nice. I see nearly all red except one green on the top. One green pencil. No, this one, it's indeed that 100% is required for an organization. I know some organizations, when they are starting, it can be lower, but for an organization, they are aiming all to have this at 100%. Yeah, there's a definition. Financial self-sufficiency is operational self-sufficiency after adjustments. Perhaps some doubts, but the people showing green are correct. This is a simple definition, like the more you can adjust, the better you have an idea about financial self-sufficiency, because in the operational self-sufficiency, when you have subsidized loans, access to cheap funding, cheap borrowings, there is no adjustment made, and you can add these adjustments yourself, or it can be done by third parties. And in that case, you will add the interest you pay for your borrowings the real one is included in your OSS, but when you add for yourself the difference between the subsidized one and the commercial ones, and you want to know for yourself can I also continue my activities when I have to pay the full price? Then you have then you know your financial self-sufficiency. I will just quickly show this small organization X did have a problem close to the 80%, but it's in a good shape today, perhaps exaggerating, at a 143% of operational self-sufficiency. The stable organization, you see, this is also something we don't like, organizations with more that bumpy view of their indicators, say in the trend, stable trends and in the positive direction. This is what we like, but this more bumpy shows that an organization might have some issues at the within the organization when it comes to financial performance. You see, this is a very stable organization. You don't have the real heights, not real lows. That's a stable organization. That's the view of a stable one. And you can see the benchmarks of all the sectors. It's not starting at 0, so they are all around 114, 104%. So 100% is a normal benchmark in the sector. Okay. I'm looking to the time, and because of our guest speaker in the afternoon, I will give you enough time to prepare the exercise of Busa Genofa in 3 different groups. But before we go into groups, I had another exercise to work in groups, but unfortunately we will not have the time for it. So I will just show you and together with you look to figures of 3 organizations, 3 different ones that you have never heard about, but just to go through this, and this will help you the way that you can look to your to the Busa Genofa and the exercise we are going to do just after this one. So here, let's have a look. So you have now seen all the indicators, and all the indicators are the main ones are all available in this graph. Can you show your thumbs if you can read it well, or do I have to increase the size? I have to increase the size.
Yes, increase.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Now you have it also. You received this one also in your mailbox this morning, and so later on you can look at it. But at a first glance, I will make it larger, or you can download it. So now it's visible?
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Just put up your hand if you say, just to make it also quite interactive. At the first glance, when looking to the figures, what is a first reaction? I cannot show them all at once, so I'll try it like this. Is there already somebody who has some observations when looking to this organization at a first glance? I know it's not that you cannot see it clearly if I show them all together. Yes. Yes, Maria. What do you want me to show in
The portfolio, the breakdown of the portfolio.
Okay, there, okay.
It has a problem.
The breakdown has a problem, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
That's not covering.
It cannot cover, here you can see the 29.
I mean, they improve a little bit, but
yeah. I don't hear you now very
Actually,
clearly.
they're not covering all the
Sorry?
At the beginning, they were, I don't know if they're Jan or whatever, but 2015, they were not covering all the costs, and later they improved a little bit. Even they earn, but actually they're losing. They're not covering all the costs in the breakdown of portfolio yield.
Yes, that's clear.
And also regarding the Part 30, it's how the Part 30 has evaluated the evolution of the Part 30. It's I don't know how to say.
No. It's certainly a point of attention.
The write-off of the ratio, exactly, because it's not. It has grown up, but what has happened there? It's something strange.
Yeah. That's very good already that you have seen something strange, and it has to do with the portfolio quality. I will guide you through the analysis. A quick analysis. I know we are not having all the details because it's only the figures, but interesting to start with is this organization. You see, it's a growing portfolio. And this is where you start with also the number of borrowers going up. And then suddenly happened in this year. We know, be aware, it's only the month of May that we have taken the picture, right? And so it's in the month of May, it's lower portfolio. It might be, is it a cycle or is something really going wrong in this organization? That will be the question. When we see to the average disbursed loan size, it's going up slowly, but about that here you can say the variation it's not that big, so it's an organization having about the same products all over the years. They are not suddenly giving out larger loans. It's quite steady growth, perhaps together with our clients. I also like to go, when looking to this, to the last part to see what is this organization. And here you can see it's a credit-only organization. There are no savings, no voluntary savings, because there is also a difference, compulsory or voluntary. Here you just see the number of clients. They are the same as here. So they don't have other clients than borrowers. Here, so no savings. And this is what you also see in the way they are financing themselves, the funding structure. It's mainly borrowings, 87%, and part of it is equity. But the cushion is very low. 12% is considered as really the edge. So the leverage, 12 to 87, that's multiply 6, 7. Normally, this organization is really looking for equity investors. They really require equity investors. With the model they have, it's quite difficult for them to go further and to have more borrowings. So that's on the funding structure, already a point of attention for this organization. As an investor, I'm not really thinking about giving debt finance, loans to this organization, because they have a small cushion. But then your observation, indeed, Maria, was something. What happened here? The portfolio quality suddenly started to go up, and now even very steep. In only 5 months, it nearly doubled. So that's what happened here. And some of you did see perhaps that this is Nicaragua. This was the effect you heard about the non-pago movement. I don't know if that was discussed, but at a certain moment you had this issue in the country of non-reimbursement of loans, and this was the beginning of that period. So in this organization, you can see suddenly the portfolio quality going down because of the Part 30 that was increasing. they were still having, when we look to the trend of the risk coverage, it's still around 100%, but you know it's going down. But the risk is still not too bad, and the 8% in reality was in before write-off already 10-11%, but 2.8 was written off, so it was just the situation was actually 11% is very high. The effect of this bad portfolio quality you can also see, and that was a very good observation, immediately in the effect in the portfolio yield, not really yet. So the reimbursements did have already some effect. The portfolio yield was always around 31-32%, but together with the increase of the portfolio at risk, you can see that the portfolio yield, and that's quite logical, is going down, but it's not too worse yet. It's not really bad, but it's going down, so certainly point of attention. The portfolio yield is still enough to cover all the operating expenses. But if we go a little bit further to the next slide, the operating expenses, they remained the same. The funding expenses also went down a little bit, but are still around 8%. It's not a big change, but it's mainly they are preparing, and they knew it. This one will increase further. The non-pago movement was here at the beginning, and this organization was preparing to keep certainly the, how do you say here, the risk coverage at a good level. But you know, for that they have to make provisions. Here you remember provisions in a normal situation, it's 1 to 2% is quite normal, but here they are putting more than 10% in provisions. And this one, when we add to the 18% here, another 8 for funding and another 10 for provision expenses, the portfolio yield is not enough. And they are making a loss of more than 7% on every loan. So for every loan of 100, by only looking to the income and the expenses of the income related to the portfolio yield, there is a loss of 7. And when we look if they can compensate it with other income, here you can see this in 2017, they already started to make some more provisions, but they already had a loss of 0.5%. You see? But in 2017, they were still financial operational self-sufficient. So my question, how is it possible? Negative yield margin, but still operational self-sufficiency 100%. How is this possible?
Professor, you mean for the year 2017?
2017, yeah. Here it's quite logical. You see, very negative yield margin, and also the operational self-sufficiency down by 25%. So that's huge, but the explanation is here. But in 2017, it was also negative. But operational self-sufficiency was still 100%. How is this possible? The one who knows can raise the hand in the by using, yes, you know it. I would just wait to see if other people also know the answer. I see.
Sorry, Professor. Just
Yeah.
what was negative? You look at the breakdown of the portfolio yield.
Yeah, I go to the breakdown of portfolio yield. In the year of 2017, The yield was 30.4%. For that, they can cover 17 of operating expenses plus 8 funding plus 5 provision. If you do 30 minus 5, 8 and 17, the yield margin is minus 0.5. So it was just not enough. But when we go to the operational self-sufficiency, we do see that this operational self-sufficiency is still 100.9%. Why is this not lower than 100? I see 3 people who think to know it. Are there other people who think to know it? You can raise your hand in the chat. I see more people now to know the answer. But still a lot of people who haven't raised a hand yet. I just think all the others also, and to show it if you know, if you think that you know it. Are you all doubting all the others? It's something that I told before in the beginning of this session. Nah, there are now some more hands coming. Okay. François. I saw you raised your hand. What is your explanation?
Well, the OSS also take in account revenue that are not coming from the portfolio. So maybe they have other source of revenue, and that's explained why it is still positive.
Yep. Exactly. That's it. So keep this in mind. Here we have the negative yield margin because we only have income from portfolio. On top of that, you could have added other income like from your financial investments, or if you have other operational operational income. Now in this organization, it's not that much. So it's reflecting very well, but if that's indeed the explanation. So it's certainly possible to have a negative yield margin and a positive operational self-sufficiency. So keep this in mind, the difference between these, the link between these two graphs. But it's clear the other operational activities are not enough to cover for the loss they have here at the portfolio yield of the yield margin. So operational self-sufficiency went down very quick. And remember, we said it in class, it can, these graphs, they are the most important triggers for a microfinance institution. When this goes wrong, everything can go wrong in a very quick way. Also this year with the COVID crisis, we will see now organizations increasing these provision expenses, but also decreasing the operating expenses, trying to keep, and we see many organizations now that have, like I referred for already a few times to the Uganda case, one of the organizations that we follow from very nearby. For example, all the people have to, there was a loan cut of 20% for all staff throughout the organization. So organizations have to take measures. If you cannot do, the best way of bringing down the operating expense ratio is doing with the same people more. But if COVID and other, and is not making it possible for you to do more, then there is only one solution, is to do it cheaper. And for that organization, it was the hard way by cutting the salaries for hopefully for them for only 1 year, and let's hope that they can recover next year. But it's a hard time for microfinance institutions. So these are the main observations for this organization. So you know, when you go to the engine, the breakdown of the portfolio is one of the questions you have to look more into detail. Is this a long-term or short-term problem? of the organization. There is perhaps also a minor thing is here. It looks like 210 loans managed for borrowers per loan officer. Number of loans is quite normal, but it looks like they have a quite large back office. And so they have not many people apparently in front office operations between of the gap between those two. So that might be also another point of attention. All right. So this is the way you can look to institutions. Here you see ASIUM, and that's the last one as looking to it. Starting from above, you see this organization less stable, high growth, less growth, going down. Also a variation in suddenly lower average disbursed loan size, though, so not very stable. Portfolio quality always struggling between 8 and 10%. It's not bad, but it's certainly not in a good shape. Less than 10 can still be considered as not alarming yet, but they are struggling. They are not getting where they want to. Also a very low risk coverage, only 30%. It's considered as very low for savings organizations, because here you see it's an organization mobilizing savings. Interesting observation. If the savings are following the same trend as your portfolio, the same shape, then you know that it's mainly compulsory savings, because it's related to the portfolio. Here it's not all compulsory, although they haven't registered, but because you see, although the portfolio size is going down, the savings are still going up. So this organization is mobilizing savings. It's not only related to the portfolio. As you can see, also a very tiny, I will increase a little bit. Also very small equity, only 10%, very high savings, very low borrowings. So this is an observation. Also negative yield margin. And the effect of this negative yield margin is clear. It's bringing the organization down to the level of below 100%, but be aware, it's only the picture of the end of June, so there might be a cycle within this organization. And here you can see the back office is much smaller, so they have much more people in front office operations, and about the same as Nicaragua, the same productivity. Okay, I know it went a little bit quick, but by having at least this quick example in your mind, I would like give you the time and to split you in 3 groups. But I see there is a hand here. I haven't seen that one. There was a question, sorry.
Yeah. Regarding the productivity of staff, there is a kind of average, I mean, a normal average, a good results average or something similar, or it depends on Africa, America, so on.
Yeah, there are differences indeed. And I told you, but I'd say if you need a rule of thumb, we consider 250 clients or borrowers per loan officer as a quite normal figure, and that you can consider this as a benchmark. Yes, Ferdinand?
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, Professor. I need to know the difference between financial performance and financial sustainability.
Yeah, performance is just how is an organization performing, and they can be sustainable or not. So that's the word.
There is a difference.
Yeah, so when we talk about financial performance, what we are doing. We are doing the evaluation of the financial performance. We are looking how are they performing, and it can be that an organization is financial self-sufficient or not self-sufficient. And so that is one of the results of your performance evaluation. So the word performance, it's more related to that one. Is that okay?
Yes, we can use operating self-sufficiency.
If you want to have the difference, no, the difference between operational self-sufficiency and financial self-sufficiency is as follows. Financial sufficiency is operational self-sufficiency, but for all the figures in your nominator, you make adjustments. So financial self-sufficiency is after adjustments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So what you have to open now in your groups is this sheet, the sheet of Busa Gonofa from Ethiopia. And for your exercise, I would say it's the new version. You will see these graphs until 21 July. Now this looks, I will make it a little bit, enlarge it so that you can see. So the manager, the CEO, Teshome, Mr. Teshome, that will join us in the afternoon, has sent us these figures for you. And these are the figures of 21/7, but it's not a mistake from his side. It's because of the fiscal year in Ethiopia is different. So the end year figures for this organization are June figures. So actually for him, these are the January figures, but he has to put it in another way. Otherwise, the fiscal year is not from January to December, but from June to the beginning of July. So for them, it's they are already in the 7th month. So that's the January figures. So that's the only thing. It's not a mistake. You will see all these figures in the new version. Apart from the operational self-sufficiency, you can see figures on return on assets and equity. That's the only difference. For the rest, it's exactly similar. You can see voluntary total savings and what part is voluntary savings. You see the funding structure. I would say when you are in your group, start check for some. The next part is check for some performance indicators if you need some more details. And if you have time, you can go also to the extras, to the real figures in the balance sheet and the P&L. But I would say don't calculate anything. Look with your group mainly to the financial graphs. The socials graphs, we will not use it now. It's something that will be discussed more with my colleague Cécile Lapenu later on. So try to look to it from a different point of view, and we will have 3 groups. I will in 3 groups. And a first group are the managers. So managers, when you are assigned to the group of the managers, you have to look to the figures as a manager, because in the afternoon, the group of the managers will have to make a presentation. Have to tell the story, how they manage the organization. They will have to point out the weak points and the strengths, but mainly they have to show what they want to do in the future. They are managers presenting their figures to the others. And the others are the other 2 groups. One group of you will be assigned to clients. So you are clients. The second group, clients that do save, voluntary savings, but also compulsory savings. So they are clients from a saving part, and they are clients having loans from this organization. Are they happy with the figures? Are they comfortable to put their money in this organization? And are they happy with the borrowings of what they can borrow of this organization? This is so the clients look to the same figures, but from a different point of view. And the third group of you are investors. So these are the men and the women with the deep pockets. You are investors. And you can look to this organization. I have already money in this organization. Am I happy with the results as from an investor's point of view? And will I invest more? That's the question that investors will ask themselves. So they will look to the same figures, but from an investor's point of view. And so in the afternoon, so for the rest of the morning, you can prepare yourself for this one. Managers look to it for a presentation to the clients and the investors later on. They try to tell the story. The clients will, sometimes we have very difficult clients. They can ask all questions to the management and the investors too. So this is for the preparation for the exercise in the afternoon. The CEO, Teshome, he will listen carefully. And after your presentations and discussions, he will unveil the real truth of this organization. So it's a test if you have understood his organization based on the figures only. So be as creative as possible. Try to have a lot of hypotheses. I know you don't have all the figures of this organization, but at least what can you deduct from the figures that you will have now? Is this all clear for you? Okay. I will also come into the different groups when you are discussing, but try to define also in your group the people who will do the presentation and also who will ask the questions. And so pay also attention to that one. All right. So then we will go to the groups.
So we will have only 30 minutes to prepare it.
To prepare. If it's, I can leave it open if you need a little bit more time. So it's not that I will close the groups. If you say I need a little bit more time, I will leave it open until 1 o'clock. Okay.
Yes, excuse me, Professor. Within the group, the people who would be asking questions, it's questions to other groups or questions?
Yeah, later on in the session afterwards, in the afternoon session, when the managers will start doing the presentation, and I will assist with the graphs and everything. But then we are sitting in this room, and after the presentation, we will give the floor to the clients and the investors for their reactions to the managers.
Okay.
To the managers of your group. Okay.
Okay.
So I have the group managers, the second group is client, and the third one is investors. Asia, Africa, Latin America, don't pay attention to that one. That was meant for another exercise. So it's managers, clients, and investors. I will now start the rooms, okay? I hope it's working, that everybody is, that it's well divided by the... No, I have to close them because I have the impression that it's not... spreading the people at the same level. No, I close the rooms and I will reshuffle, otherwise we have a problem. Yeah, here we are all back. Sorry for that, because it looked that in the group of clients there was only one client. Is that correct?
also 2 in the investors.
Sorry?
We were also 2 only in the investors.
Yeah, okay. I will just wait. I will just because the groups are not were not equally divided. So I will just check. We are how many people in total today? Let's have a look. Then I can do a quick assignment. We are 23, so it's about 7 in each group. Huh? Okay, I will just do a quick. In meantime, you can already look to the figures that I have sent to you. So it's the Excel file that you can open already. In meantime, and I will add people to the different rooms. Now I hope it's more equally divided. Here we are. Yes, Emmanuel. Hello.
Yeah, hello, Professor.
Yes, you are not in a group.
I don't know what's happening.
What happened? You came back?
Then I don't know what happened, Professor. Can you hear
Yes.
me? Maybe you
Yes.
could assign me back to my group. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened.
Yes, you are in what group? And
I
there's
don't
also
know.
and Dansil. You are also. I'm just looking where you are.
Okay. We usually didn't. We've not used this with the group splitting. We always use Zoom, so it is a little bit new for us.
I see.
Yeah.
But you are not in a group now, eh?
Yeah, I don't think so because
No,
I just find myself back here.
Yes, I see. Can you open your to check? Can you just open your video?
Okay, let me do that.
Because you are assigned to. I see that you are assigned, but you are not. I will just see to what group.
There is a button that join room. Is it that one?
Yeah, that's the one you have to take.
Thank you, Professor.